Welcome, everyone, to the Power of Integrity, where leadership aligns with principles. I am delighted to have Catherine Rose, today's guest, on with me. The show is going to be wonderful. Catherine, in full disclosure, is a client of Integrity Wealth Management. She's a good friend. She's also a member of our advisory board and our Women's Council. So, Catherine Rose, I want to hear all about your story, what's led you up to where you are today, and take us through your professional and personal journey if you could.
Oh wow, thank you. Thanks for having me, Ralph. It's going to be a fun time. I think I love the questions that you pose, and it'll be interesting. I think. So my professional journey, I would say, has had three or four parts. I think the part that I started at was my work in the private sector, corporate world, and coming out of undergrad, I joined a Big Eight accounting firm. I didn't at the time know my assets from my elbows, but I got a lot of good training there. Joined a part of a team that was very new. It was very experimental. In the 80s, the Big Eight accounting firms were all getting into strategic consulting, and so we really got any project that didn't fit in the traditional categories of accounting or audit or MIS services. So really any questions that the clients were asking that, again, didn't fit those traditional categories, but maybe required some professional thinking or some outside expertise, we tried to give that. And I was a junior level staffer in that. I just learned a lot from the people I worked with, and that kind of led me, that really started me on my path where I've circled back to more recently. But let's see, from there I got my MBA, and came out of that and worked in the corporate world for a good 20 years. Big Fortune 100 companies, again, got a tremendous amount of training, tremendous amount of good professional experience. Worked my way up the ranks, and then worked for a couple companies, both on both coasts, and then really found toward the end of that period that I was leading a big commercial unit of had probably 10 direct reports and a consumer goods portfolio that was close to $1 billion in sales. And I really did not want the next job. uh, I saw what my boss did at that level, and that really it didn't hold a lot of interest for me. So after a couple of corporate reorganizations, I reorganized myself out of there, and really took an opportunity to reinvent myself and move into the nonprofit sector, a huge sector of our economy. But one where I felt I was on a daily basis making a lot more impact on the businesses, the nonprofit businesses I was working with, and that has occupied me for probably the last 15 years at least of my career. I've been a consultant. I've been a leader of organizations. I've been an employee, and now I'm really doing that work as a volunteer. So I'm taking, again, all of the lessons I learned from my corporate life, my skill set, my tool bag, and applying it to situations in the nonprofit sector that need my help as a volunteer. And I sit on a number of boards and just bring that expertise as needed to those situations. So that's kind of where I've landed.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, and I love the word impact and the fact that it demonstrates character, that's the most important thing at this stage in your life is how do I make an impact on things, and it's far
Exactly.
greater. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, on this topic that we're here to talk about today, would you kind of share with me, because everybody has their own sense of this answer and this belief, of what does integrity mean to you?
Well, okay, it's very interesting because I thought about that in preparation for this session, Ralph, and I went to my handy dandy dictionary, and lo and behold, there are a couple of definitions. Two that that really resonate with me. One is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, and I think that's um, what is traditionally thought of when you think of integrity, and I think that's totally valid. Um, the other definition, though, is one that also hits my brain in a particular way, and that is the state of being whole and undivided, sound and healthy. And it comes from the Latin root integer, a whole number. And so when I think about how I approach problems or how I do, my leadership style or whatever, I think I gravitate more toward the latter definition because I try to see whole situations, the big picture, the long run, and I tend to problem solve with that in mind. I want, if I'm working with a particular, let's say, a nonprofit, I want support systems to be in place. I want a succession plan to be developed, and that helps me kind of steward those organizations that I align myself with for success in the future.
Yes, I knew I could count on you to be studious and actually have prepared. My gosh, you probably are the most studious guest we've ever had on, prepared with dictionary, complete definitions for it. And you
That
have
was
them
one
wrote.
thing yeah, that's one thing I took a note on so I could pull that up quickly. I don't have
What?
that in memory.
Wonderful. I'm hoping that I'll stump you somewhere along the way today and get you to really have to ponder without all that prepared thought. But who knows? Prepared thought's a good thing. So, when you think about your career, whether it's in the corporate for profit or the nonprofit world, and you were leading folks, can you tell us how integrity played a role in leadership and your leadership style and what that impact was on those that were under your tutelage?
Yeah, yeah, no doubt that there's a big link there between integrity and how things play out with the people that you supervise, people that work for you or work with you. As a volunteer, it's more of a collaboration in what we're doing. I think a really good memory I have from that that's tied to that is I was brought in as a strategic planning consultant for a nonprofit group, and they had a really dysfunctional situation going on. No one was talking to each other. Staff morale was very low. The executive director that brought me in, we went through a process, and in that process, the board realized that executive director was not the right person for the job, and so to carry out the process, they let that person go, and then they really had a vacuum in leadership and asked me to come in and could I temporarily lead the group, and I I I had the time to do it, so I did, and um, fascinating experience because it was so dysfunctional. No one was talking to each other. They had just shut down, and just no trust, right? So I instituted staff meetings, which they'd never had before. That was a revelation, and really tried to grow the level of trust in that between those groups. And they had to trust me first. So I had to show up with this real coat of integrity every time I, stepped on the property, and try to treat people very fairly, listen a lot, um, and then encourage them to listen to each other. And gradually, we got there. Uh, we solved some of the thorniest issues, and got the sides talking to each other, and we're able to ultimately retain all the rest of the staff that was needed to run the organization. They found a permanent executive director, so I was then able to extricate myself. And 10-15 years later, they are thriving, they are going strong, and that's a great feeling to know that I did make a difference in that moment, in that
Yes.
critical time.
Yeah, the code of integrity that you wore into that process, and figuring that the process has to be played out regardless of where it takes us.
Yep.
Key insight there. And integrity, leads to trust.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
trust is born out of being able to predict someone else's behavior before they behave. And you only know that from working with someone who repeatedly demonstrates a level of integrity and doesn't, somehow fake us out at some point in time. And we're wondering, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And, from that lack of integrity, at
Trust
some point,
is so easy to lose and really tough to build back. It takes a lot more work once you lose it.
oh my gosh, yes. If you can even recapture it to the
Yeah.
same level
Right.
again.
Right.
When you think
Right.
about it, was there a time where you can remember the end consumer, the clients of the firm, the constituents, the customers, where integrity played a role in the loyalty of those constituents, customers, and clients?
Uh, sure. Yeah. I think loyalty is part of integrity. I think loyalty breeds trust, and or trust breeds loyalty, and that could be brand loyalty, team loyalty, um, uh, any you need one to get the other. And I was fortunate enough, I would say, to have been at Johnson & Johnson back in the 80s, when 80s and early 90s, when we had the experience. I wasn't on the team, but I worked with a lot of people who were directly, when J&J went through the tampering crisis for Tylenol. And it took just a tremendous effort to get through that with integrity to the Johnson & Johnson credo, which put patients and the healthcare professionals at the top of their loyalty chart. And as a result, J&J pulled all that product off shelves nationally in every pharmacy, repackaged it with anti-tampering stuff, and rolled it all back out. Huge, huge investment, huge cost, huge
Oh,
effort.
yes.
And but as a result, Tylenol has just unparalleled brand loyalty, and very successful story coming out of that. And the people that were involved in that unit of J&J ended up being leaders in that whole company for a long time.
What that's a wonderful launch pad, because I didn't mean for it to go there, but the Johnson & Johnson and the Tylenol tampering led to a book. There was a book on that case study called
Okay.
Integrity Works.
Wow.
And that book was the seedling to Integrity at Work, the book I wrote,
Okay.
because it was that double entendre about integrity at work, the principle in integrity wealth management, what it does as an organization. And so I can give great credit to that book called Integrity Works. And then there was the Integrity Advantage that followed right behind it. And
Okay.
for sure, if we follow integrity, it seems to be a real advantage, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And you can point to a million examples of the opposite as well. So,
Thank you. You're like mind reading for me today. I was going to ask you, certainly at some point in your career, professionally or even personally over your life, you had the integrity was tested, and the counterparty, the other party you were working with, lacked integrity. Can you kind of walk our audience through what transpired and give an example around that?
um, well, I tend to focus more on the positive ones, but let's see. I think part of where my integrity has been tested would be situations where I'm on a board of direct. One of the key criteria or duties of being on a board, whether it's a nonprofit board or a corporate board, is this duty of care, and loyalty is part of that. Um, and one of the principles of that is that if you make a decision in the boardroom, it, it and you're marching forward as a group, you need to be loyal to that. You have to, whether you agreed with it at the time or not, if the decision has been made, that's what you move forward with. And sometimes after those decisions, you'll get someone who was maybe not part of that process asking you, well, did you really agree with that decision, or did everyone, was that a, how many board members voted for that? And you answering that question is, those kinds of questions, you just, it's a recipe for disaster. And so you really have to redirect the situation if you find yourself in that position, because you have a duty of care to not disclose those kinds of debates, or that messy side of being in leadership. And so what I try to do in those situations is, you could you could say I'm not at liberty to say, but that sounds pretty cold. So I usually say, hey, I understand why you'd be interested in knowing that. Let me direct you to some resources that you might find interesting, or might help you. And then go to the website or the person, try to find some single source of truth that everyone can be referred to. And it's important to have that set up when you have a contentious situation going on, or you have you've gone forward with a rollout of something. It's important to have those mechanisms in place to take those questions, because you're bound to get them. I don't know if
Yeah.
that answered your question, but I was related, probably.
Yes, yes. Well, what you've relayed to our audience is an insight on making sure when a decision is made, the voice stays unified,
Right.
so
Perfect.
that no backbiting can happen and none of that drama behind the scene where there's dissension of the ranks,
Right.
because the leadership came out and said, yes, while we voted, it wasn't unanimous. And by the way, I was a dissenter from that vote.
You're not going to get anywhere that way.
Right? Yes. Yes. I understand that leadership is fractured on this topic. Why are we following you?
Yeah, that's the plan, to have your whole plan go in the
Right?
dumpster fire.
Oh, yeah. Recipe for disaster for sure. For sure. Was anything else so far on what we've talked about that you wanted to add, or you felt that you might wanted to clarify on any of the things so far before I move on?
No, no, it's all good.
Wonderful. Well, we've been here with Catherine Rose, a woman of principle and a woman of integrity. In fact, she's part of the Women's Council on the Women of Integrity at our company, helping direct what our curriculum for the women clients of the firm. And so she's been a great contributor. She's also on our advisory board, and she's helped steer our direction and focus. She's been a real good voice. We try to pride ourselves on making the voice of the client the voice we listen to, so that our narrative fits where they want to go and what we're trying to do. And one of the things that I like to test with my advisory board member and women's council member is a whole new question. We're starting to get into a place where our clients financially are well off. And it's now about, well, what else? What else? And what are we doing? And how are we capturing the dreams and the experiences? And so I'm wondering if I could ask you about your bucket list, if there's one or two things you might share with our audience that's on your bucket list that might inspire someone else's bucket list.
Oh my gosh, I don't even have a bucket list yet, Ralph.
Well, tell me about the dreams that are in your life, and something you. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's retrospect. For you just had a daughter get married,
Yep,
right? Was it
yep,
Durango?
yep.
Tell a little bit about that, and then I think that might be fodder for what other dreams you have.
Oh, okay. Well, um, yeah, it was a great experience. We had just an epic ending to a year of planning. Um, got to plan it alongside our daughter, who is herself a pretty good planner, and her sister, who's also a pretty good planner. So I think some genes run strong in our family.
Yes, yes, yes. Can you set the visual stage? Because from what I heard, it was magnificent.
Yeah. Well, Here's what where I think you might have wanted me to go here. The process that we went through started with what is imperative for you, the bride and groom. What are your imperatives for this weekend? And that we start. I asked them this question at least 8 or 9 months before the wedding, and the response was, what are you prioritizing? What do you want? What should we prioritize? And the number one priority was guest experience. And so that's the mantra we went back to every time we had to make a decision. Is this, as long as it was within the realm of affordability, can we enhance the guest experience by doing X, Y, or Z? And so, as a result, everyone had a fantastic weekend. We did everything we could to make it easy for people, to make it seamless and fun and involving. And we're only working with about 75 guests, so that was a plus. You can't do this when you have a mass amount of people, but so that was the backdrop, I would say. When we got to the actual weekend, things were going really well, and then rain started. And so what do you do when that happens? Well, you have to keep the bride uh, from freaking out, and there were people that did that. Um, you have to get your guests where they can be comfortable, and so our wedding assistant put blankets on everybody and gave us all umbrellas. And then, lo and behold, as we're getting ready to start things up, here comes the double rainbow in Colorado. The clouds parted and the double rainbow appeared. And that's the backdrop for the whole ceremony. So from there, it was off the mountain and off to the um, lodge for the reception, and great party ensued. So that's what we did.
Fantastic. So you're through maybe the first two areas of being competitive, creative, and now contemplative, right?
Yeah,
You start to reflect on things, right? That
that's,
third of life.
yeah.
What are some of those dreams you want to live out in that third of life?
Well, I think just continuing to hopefully build our family, build a future generation, make sure they have what they need to be successful, to be happy, leave a legacy. Uh, and probably others who are listening, some may know that we have a place in Colorado, and that started from a legacy that my husband Hugh's family uh, started years and years ago, decades ago. His grandfather built this, and we've continued it, we've expanded it. We'd like to put that in place now for the next generation and beyond, and I think we can do that. I
Yeah, it's a
think
real legacy home. Well, you've been a tremendous parent, a tremendous example. You've been a powerful woman without being over powerful. You've been graceful in that manner, very capable all through, but always playing alongside Mr. Rose. I've
absolutely.
watched him. Yes, you do that. You walk a walk very successfully. It seems like you face the sunrise and the sunset shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, I made a very good decision there. That was one of my best.
Absolutely, absolutely, and of course he overmarried, so it's all good. In any event, Catherine, kind of as we're maybe finding our close here. What do you have to tell? Because not just as a parent, but as a businesswoman,
Mhm.
what would you tell the younger folks getting started on their careers or in their new startup business? What are some of the things you would share with them, or the one or two insights that you think about made a difference in your world?
Yeah. Uh, well, I think what we were talking about earlier, trust being so easy to lose and so hard to build back, that you have to keep that in mind. I think there's a temptation in a lot of situations to take the easy way, or the profitable, easy profits, or um, take a way that doesn't involve integrity or doesn't prioritize integrity. And ego and greed, those drivers of human action, they don't sit well with integrity. And so I just think if you keep that in mind as a young person starting out, and as you move forward, that you will work harder to rebuild trust if you lose it. And yes, you can probably rebrand yourself or recreate yourself or whatever you need to do, but somebody's going to pay a price for that, whether it's you or people who work for you or your customers. So that's a good, I think, a good rule to live by.
Oh yeah, yeah. It takes
Work by.
a pound of cure instead of an ounce of prevention, right?
Yeah,
To stay
absolutely.
out of that. Reimagining and re-engineering is a lot of work. It's not simple, and you probably leave. There's some fallout along the way.
Yeah.
Well, Catherine, you and I talked about this. For folks want to get in touch with you, I think you had suggested the best way is for them to reach out to Integrity Wealth Management, reach out to me individually.
Yep.
You can connect with our info at integrityiwm.com email address, events at integrityiwm.com, or you can call the office. I'm happy to take the call, or my assistant Nicole here, or anyone else. That number is 949-955-1188. But we've had this wonderful pleasure going down this journey of integrity with you, Catherine Rose. I really appreciate it. You've done a wonderful job, and our audience is better having heard you and having heard your spirit come through the screen for sure.
Great. Happy to do it. Thanks.
The information presented in this program is provided for informational purposes only. The information is believed to be reliable, but no guarantee of accuracy is made or implied. Expressions of opinions are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult a legal or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. This information does not constitute a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of capital. Ralph Adamo is registered with the securities and are offered through Kovac Securities, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC, 6451 North Federal Highway, Suite 1201, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33308. Telephone number 954-782-4771. Investment advisory services are offered through Kovac Advisors, Inc. Integrity Wealth Management is not affiliated with Kovac Securities, Inc. or Kovac Advisors, Inc.